Hello, welcome to our webinar. We've got the fabulous Charlie there, and we've got Abigail, and I'm Amanda Peddle. We'll tell you a bit more about us in a minute, but we're here celebrating Neurodiversity Week with the Positively Powered Kids ladies and their wonderful work, and thank you very much to them for having us. So we're going to be talking about It's All About You, or Is It? We're going to have a little chat and conversation about perception and how that creates difference, and what we mean by neurodiversity. There's been lots on in the week, and there's lots on tomorrow as well. So we've just done you a short slideshow, and then we're going to have a discussion from different perspectives, because we're different ages and different backgrounds, and we've got different views on things, about some sort of current topics that are important to the kids, because they've got their own neurodiversities. So there we are. Oh, now far forward. Look at that, technology at its finest. That's what happens when you put old ladies in charge of technology.
You've covered up your writing.
I know, I've covered up my writing. It doesn't show that on the screen though. So
on the screen you can see it all.
Yeah. So I'll let Abigail and Charlie introduce themselves. So Abigail.
So I'm Abigail MacArthur. I am an advocate for neurodiversity, a visual artist working on projects such as the Tam's Journey book series and a Comorbid World Instagram illustration online web series, so to speak. And I am also a public speaker talking in various subjects, mainly neurodiversity. So, and then I'm going to pass you over to Charlie.
So my name's Charlie. I am an advocate for neurodiversity. I also work with the Tam's Journey book series. I am trying just to get the word out there that mental health is okay and it should be more normalised, and it's about me. So pass you back to Amanda.
Lovely. And I am a practitioner first and foremost. I do intensive specialist support work with children and families, normally when they're, in really difficult places. I've also written the Tam's Journey book series, and I do speaker consultancy and training, and I'm also a researcher for a further study into the areas that I do. So that's just a little bit about us.
Yeah.
And I think it's safe to say that I am not diagnosed with anything. However, I think it's widely acknowledged that ADHD is quite prevalent in my family, and we've taken lots of skills from that. Abigail does have labels.
Many.
Charlie, do you want to share if you have labels?
Yes, I have quite a few labels, don't you worry.
We do. While we do celebrate neurodiversity, it's about accepting that, while they're given labels nowadays, actually what we're talking about is just a difference in the way our brain processes information. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. So how we view the world is called perception, and how we perceive things is how the brain sends messages to the body, and the different parts of the brain that sort out that information. There are actually more senses, but I'm going to stick to these for now because these are most commonly known. But as we research more, we do understand that there are other sensory conversations that happen in the body, and that information is coming out more regularly now. But most people would understand that we have 5 senses, and they act like the Wi-Fi signals that tell the brain what to do. And those, we see something, we hear something, we smell something, those messages run really quickly to the brain, and the different parts of the brain that have their jobs to do turn that into knowledge and an idea of something. But the problem we have is that we only get our version of what we have seen, and we don't necessarily get the whole picture of what we have seen. We get an interpretation that we have understood. This is a perfect example. So, Abigail, what's the first thing you see in the image?
Old-fashioned candlestick.
And Charlie, what do you see in the image?
I see two people facing each other.
Okay. And can you see the candlestick?
No.
Okay. Can you see the faces?
No.
It's quite clear that there's faces there.
Really?
I think that.
Yeah, I could just see the candlestick banging straight out in the middle. Like,
How can you not see the two faces outside?
I don't know, man. How can?
Look, there's like the head, the eyes,
Where?
and then there's the nose and the lips. Can't you see it? What do you see, Amanda?
I can see both.
Oh.
Oh wait. Are they sort of like? They've got like really sticky out for. Wait. Oh, they've got big noses. Is that the nose?
Yeah.
That second bit down.
Yeah. I think.
I think I see it. I still see the candlestick handle. I still see an old.
I don't see no candlestick. That's all I see is two faces.
It's like the really old-fashioned, like what you.
I know what you've got talking about, but I
Yeah.
cannot. I see two faces with a white background. I don't see this candlestick.
I don't know.
Neither do
I
I.
don't know, man.
That's all I can see is two faces.
So Charlie's brain is obviously seeing this picture. The light, the brain has picked up on the sensory process of vision and has sent an image to Charlie's brain that he can see two faces. And the same has happened with Abby, and her brain has seen first the candelabra. And we find that conflict, especially when it comes between children and adults, especially between teachers and children, comes when we both see something just from our own perspective and we don't necessarily have time to try and look at it from others. And this one's really good idea of you know, differences in view and how we manage those differences in views. Is this picture is perfect for that, because quite clearly one guy sees the 6 and one guy sees the 9 and they both think they're right, and certainly with the teenage brain, even with the adult brain, and at different stages of development, we cling on to what our brain has given us, what information our brain has given us, and we cling to that as absolutely steadfast truth, when actually that is just how we've interpreted it. Our brains have interpreted it that way and someone else has interpreted it another way. And I think it's safe to say, Charlie, there have been occasions when how things are viewed as how things might be seen to be a different way is something that you've come up against.
It's like in this image as well, though. I can see the 6, but like I first look at it and it's a 9. That's what I see.
Yeah,
it's literally the same situation.
It's really funny because the first number that processes in my mind, I can see, obviously I know it's both, but I will read out 9 in my head before I do.
Exactly, 6. That's what I see first. It's 9.
Yeah.
I don't see 6. I see 9 first. Or a weird G.
Exactly. It might actually be speech marks or commas.
Yeah.
It might not actually necessarily be numbers.
Yeah,
Some people might sort of say that
it's the yin and yang split in half.
Might be the yin and yang split in half.
The yin and yang.
Well, if you put the 6 and the 9 together, it kind of.
We're all just trying to come up with ideas now.
The problem with relying on our immediate response to things as being a truth, you know, you're assuming that everybody's brains work in the same way and that we see things from the same perspective. So, I mean, is it really all about being right, or is it about accepting that people have a different view? And this is where we come into sort of neurodiversity, how different we all are. So each human brain has approximately 86 billion neurons in each brain. Now, a neuron, we've got little plushy neurons here that we use.
I haven't got one. Sorry.
Not yours, yeah. And you know, they race around the brain, passing on information. They are what sends the messages, and
Yeah.
each of these neurons can send messages up to tens of thousands of different ways, and that makes approximately 100 trillion neural connections. That is 100 trillion different ways of processing information
each and every person.
Each and every
that's so crazy though, isn't it? How many
you can't even
like,
try and
there's
multiply
so much
those
stuff
numbers together. Yeah, they wouldn't fit on a
exactly. I mean, try counting to 100 trillion. It's like oh my god, no, because you'd need all them neurons to count to the 100 trillion.
Need all the neurons. And interestingly enough, there are approximately 7.7 billion people on the planet. So, you know, I'm rubbish at maths. I'm not even going to try and turn it into a fraction or an equation or anything.
I wouldn't.
If
I wouldn't be able to back you up.
At maths and can do that, let us know.
Yeah. I'm sure someone out there is like, I know Sam's watching. She's probably sat figuring it out now, and can figure out how likely it is, you know, what are the negative likelihoods of being like anybody else. But I mean, if we've got 7.7 billion people on the planet, 86 billion neurons, and 30 trillion
some sort of math equation,
connections,
some sort of math equation.
You know, they're big numbers, and I think when it comes to neurodiversity, you know, I get that people like a label. When Abby was growing up, we didn't have a choice. You know, the doctors gave us labels, and we went with that because we thought that was the best thing to do. And I think it's quite nice that I'm at the point where I'm like, I could have a label. I don't particularly need one. You know, it's
quite clear sometimes.
Yeah, it's widely accepted, but it actually is a skill set that I can use for good things, and because it makes me a bit bouncy and probably acts like a bit of an idiot, that's quite appealing to children and young people. So it works in terms of my job. So difference is normal. Neurodiversity encompasses everybody, and then it seeks to create a more open and accepting understanding of self and of difference. And I think that's really, really important.
At the end.
that we understand that. So what I thought we would do, which would be quite nice, is that if you and Abby maybe had a conversation about some of the things that an adult might see differently to you guys. So as Abigail's mum, my view on her online life and to your online life is something that I probably don't get, because I'm looking at it from my
mum's
from my perspective, and I think a lot of mums would sort of have quite strong views about maybe what that looks like, what that provides for you. And I do know that lots and lots of children and young people who are neurodiverse or seem to be, or would put themselves in that category, even though we all are, but would specifically put themselves in that category. I think online and digital world is a big thing for you guys. Yeah. Well, we've lost Charlie. We've lost Charlie. So Abigail, why don't you explain your perception and your viewpoint of what the digital world provides for you, and we'll see if there's any sort of adults out there that have got questions about that from how they view it.
Yeah, sorry, someone's having technical issues trying to see the live stream.
Well, you speak and I'll sort that out.
Right, can you repeat that, because I wasn't paying attention?
Yes, yeah, we have a neurodiverse brain. So your perception, while Charlie's logging back on, it's this, I think, a big different perception sometimes, so it's with parents and young people. My
perspective on the my online life, I guess.
Yeah, and I suppose just talk a little bit about how our different views can get in the way, how that different perception
Yeah, well, the most
can become a bit of a barrier.
I'm gonna start off by pointing out the elephant in the room. Really, it's very in most parents' head, the first thing that comes to their mind when they see their kids on their consoles all day is they're being antisociable. Which, yes, they may be being antisociable from you and the family, but actually, I have friends from all around the world, about 3 different states in America, Canada, friends up and down the UK. We've even, like, we form little crews and gaming crews and communities that we all connect via things like Discord and Twitch, which most parents are going to be like, what's that? But we know what we're talking about. We know what the young ones will know what I'm talking about. And these massive international communities have just formed around such things, including gaming. The ability to stream and be able to talk through Messenger has opened up more than just gaming. It's opened up a whole different kind of community, and we don't even end up talking about games. I have sat until early hours of the morning talking to different people about what's it like going on in your end of the world, and we'll end up talking about politics, culture, ethics, listening to how different their lives are and figuring out where the similarities are, taking the time to learn where the differences are, and just respecting and understanding where we are from each part, from wherever we are in the world. But at the same time, the same thing always crops up, and that is, we're human beings. We're made up of the same stuff. We're in a different part of the world. And actually, there are studies to show that whilst there are a lot of fears of gamers being antisociable, there is plenty of evidence to also suggest that quite the opposite is happening, because it's enabled people to access communities that are now spread worldwide. And perfect timing, because Charlie's just come back. Charlie,
yes, I'm sorry, my internet wants to keep playing up.
I was explaining from my perspective as an adult, like, a lot of parents fear that being a gamer means I'm antisociable, but I've just explained that through the means of Twitch and Discord. I've actually got friends all around the world, and as much as we game, I quite often have conversations about their politics, religion, ethnic, ethnicity, how things are different in their parts of the world. Like, it becomes so much more than just gaming. Gaming is actually the door that opens
a new friendship, new relationship with someone.
So I'm gonna pass over to, is that still something that's very relevant in your generation?
Absolutely, 100,000%, because obviously I like to game. It interests me quite a lot. So if I play online with someone, 9 times out of 10, I will still have a conversation with them at another day, and even if we don't, in that session, we'll talk about, like, where they're from, like what's happening over there, like, or like how are them, what's happening in their life. Just have like a normal person-to-person conversation that can develop into such a good friendship. I've got friends at the moment,
doesn't it?
I've got friends at the moment who I met through gaming. So I've got friends from gaming, so it's like it can do quite good. It's still going on to this day. Do you know what I mean? It's still a thing that's happening, and it's going quite well. I've seen some odd cases, something can happen, but 9 times out of 10,
it's about management. Yes, you can fall very much into a rabbit hole with gaming, but at the same time, if it's managed right, it's incredibly liberating, because actually gamers become friends, friends become your support network. I'm a part of a gaming crew at the moment. I was explaining platforms such as Discord, but we've recently become friends with another gaming crew. They're a bit bigger than the one that I'm normally a part of, but this gaming crew has a check-in system, which a different coloured heart represents how you're feeling. And someone will go check in and you respond with the colour of your heart. And if someone's not okay, it then becomes an open support forum.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
exactly.
And that started from a bunch of friends swearing their heads off at GTA and like, do you want to play again tomorrow? Yeah, all right.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing.
Like, you wouldn't put 2 and 2 together. You wouldn't see how sweary games and shooting then becomes massive support networks spreading.
I know, exactly. That game right there, I bet a lot of gaming developers don't even think that their game could make such good people's friendship and like socializing and stuff, especially in like times like these. It's not just going out and meeting a new friend. You can also easily meet them online, and they can be such good friends.
Animal Crossing is a classic example, partly because now they couldn't predict a pandemic was coming. It just so happens their game was released, and it then became something so much more because of that sheer timing. Naturally, I think it's one of few games of the year because it became other people's escape.
Exactly. I've never Yes. I don't think I've ever heard Animal Crossing at all before. I might have heard it a couple of times, but that happened, and then a couple of months after I heard about it, and I got it a few months after that.
Yeah.
And now I'm 4-Star Island. But I've met this person actually on there that we get along so well. Actually, that's a good example. I've just remembered. We get along so well, and we'll always go to like each other's island. But we were all.
Oh no!
Oh, we've lost him again.
We'll come back to him
in a minute.
We'll come back to him
we
in
will
a minute.
come back into him because it's. I think one of the things that parents worry about so much, and these opposing views of how we view things, is that it's certainly. I mean, Abby's. You don't mind me saying, is Abby's labelled with ADHD and autistic spectrum disorder, which is, we don't like the word disorder, but it's autism, Asperger's. That tendency to sort of shut herself away in game has been really prevalent since she was little, and it was a worry for me. And my husband still can't get his head around it, and my mum and the nannies, it's just a whole other world. And from their perception is that she's not mixing, it's not good for her, it's not helping her develop social skills. It shuts her off more from the world, and she should be trying to mix more, and she should be trying to do this. And I think it sort of, you've battled that, haven't you, since you were little? So that perception that she's deliberately being rude with her happy face.
Well, the thing is,
that's a bit special sometimes.
I suppose this is where balance comes into it, because if you then become hyper focused, you do have to consider, you then lose your ability to recognize the world that's going around you. And that's why I mentioned earlier, moderation is quite important. So take away the social aspects of it for a second. It can come across incredibly rude, but by no means is it intentional. Probably about 75% of the time. The other 25%, you know what, I was a teenager once, I purposely ignored people at times, hence why I've given it a nice little chunk of 25% stubborn, I don't want to listen to you, 75% I am hyper focused on a game, I genuinely did not hear you. So it's a valid point. But you have to take those two separate things away from each other. Socially, there's plenty of benefit there, as well as disadvantages. There is online bullying, it happens, but online bullying happens in more places than just games, and you get bullying in real life. So that isn't just a game online exclusive thing.
That's what I mean. Everything happens still in real life. Exactly.
But I think mummies would go, but how do you keep yourself safe? There's so much risk out there online.
We've grown up with the internet. We're the generation of the internet.
We're Gen Z.
I'm millennial,
Is
you're
that-
Gen Z.
Oh, whatever. I don't even know what the situation is with Gen Z. I just said we're Gen
No,
Z
you
because that's what I
are.
thought.
I've actually had to stop an argument. I had to sit and Google it. You are Gen Z. I'm millennial.
But I mean,
No,
how
but
does
it's
giving
so
those
true
labels?
though.
How does giving those labels
Boomer.
help? As well? No, Nanny's a boomer. I'm an X, I think. I think I'm Generation X.
Post boomer.
I'm a
Post-boomer.
post boomer.
Post boomer. We'll call you post boomer.
Yeah, I'll be a post boomer. But I have to say, I mean, it's you know, I did sort of in the lockdown in May. I sort of like, if you can't beat them, join them. And I did get a Switch with Animal Crossing on it. So
Yeah, we've loved it
yes.
though,
I can see the attraction, especially if you've got a busy head and you find it hard to switch off, to lose yourself into something like that.
Oh yeah, I was only supposed to go check on my island, and boom, I was on it for 3 hours. It's so easy.
Yeah, but is it a good thing? Is that a good thing? You know, parents would sort of go, is that a good thing?
Again, it comes down to moderation.
It depends.
It comes down to moderation and self. Sam Lewis says Minecraft legendary. I have a good few hundred hours on Minecraft.
Oh yes.
We won't talk about how much I play Minecraft.
I don't think you understand how much I build on Minecraft. I build the most stupidest things, most biggest.
The thing is, it's another form of escapism.
Exactly.
Same as music. Same as someone can get lost in a painting for 2 hours and time goes
It's
by.
the same. It's just
If
like
something piques your interest and keeps your mind quiet, you're equally as likely to lose time and lose track of time doing that than you are a game.
exactly. It's not just the
a lot of
games.
it has the word media has put a stain on most things that are online because of how notoriously dangerous it can be. Which is correct. It is correct. There is a very serious issue with media, but not from the kids. My issue with media is more news articles and people of power telling what you can and cannot do. The everyday kids who just like sitting playing World of Warcraft will happily play World of Warcraft and probably has a game of friends. Probably gets the odd troll, but actually it's like, yeah, whatever, I'm having fun.
Exactly. It's just enjoying yourself in a hobby.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
I like that one. So how do you guys, what do you guys think about the whole neurodiversity term? And do you think people are understanding it more and more? Or do you think you're still having to fight to be understood?
You're talking to me and Abby, you're talking to people?
Yeah, both of you, yeah.
Neurodiversity. Most people still don't know the word if I say it to them, and I think that's why Charlie, I'm not speaking for Charlie, but I think Charlie might agree when I say that's why we purposely say neurodiverse advocates, because it's a term that needs to be out there. It's a very neutral, very friendly way of describing anybody with a mental health.
It can be quite confusing sometimes. It's a spectrum, really.
Yeah. And it covers anyone with any learning disability, mental health condition, you know, even physical disabilities. That has an impact on your mental health.
Yeah.
And it's by saying it, you're accepting. It's an acceptance of individuality, and it embraces it in a much simpler term.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so someone said it's really interesting to hear about the gaming world from a young person's perspective, and I think we could probably do a whole webinar on that at some point, because that's really really good.
You know,
well, that really is. I have a lot to say about that as well, so I'm happy.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
Kevin Roberts. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever spoke. This is something for offstream, but Kevin Roberts is someone you would like, Charlie, because he was a gaming addict. He got to the point where his moderation got out of control. But with
what's
that,
his name? Kevin
also
Roberts.
explains Kevin Roberts, but he explains how the ADHD brain is much more susceptible to being drawn into it in a much more imaginative way. So that's something, if you write that down, any parents listening, he's a really good one to go to for a bit more bit more of an out there way of thinking.
I am still
If you want
here.
the
I'm still going to
science
come up
around-
and write
If
it
you want
down.
the science,
Yeah, if you want the science around some of the gaming and, you know, some of the pitfalls, especially for the ADHD brain and gaming.
yeah.
Bev Nolker's on tomorrow at 2:30, so she links into some of
Yeah.
that as well. But Kevin Roberts is really great for understanding some of the science around the gaming and all the rest of it.
'Cause
Yeah,
there
and I'm
was
quite actually quite happy you told me
neurodiverse-
about
Sorry, Charlie.
So we've got a
that.
question
No,
from
sorry.
Chris. Is the perception of gamers a generational thing? I see it as evolution. What do you think?
Well, the brain's evolving anyway, so it's
Exactly.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
yes.
you look at cavemen,
Yeah.
and then you go to how it all, like evolution, it's just a new thing that's come and it's getting bigger.
Yeah.
It is.
If you
part
think
of
about it,
evolution.
like when these games came out in the 80s, I've seen news articles of people obsessing over these game-obsessed kids over a massive Pac-Man console. It's the same thing now.
Yeah.
We're playing little games on our phones. It
It's just-
started generations ago, but media has enabled the ability to post everything everywhere, wherever we want it. Therefore, it's you see it everywhere, and therefore it's more forefront in people's
And there's
minds
so
because
much.
you can't get rid of it, which is
Yeah.
why I like my games. There's no social media there.
There's no people.
There's no people there.
Unless you want them.
It's just
Unless
to
you want
yourself.
them,
You have
yeah.
a choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I completely understand that. Just like to huddle in a corner and just be alone and play your little Animal Crossing or something, and just there's no media, there's no one, there's just chill.
Coming back to the neurodiverse thing, I actually am curious to know, because it's a new term. I wanted to know. It might be interesting from a parent's perspective to go back a few generations so we can understand. Neurodiversity was a term back then when you were growing up.
No,
You
I
don't
mean,
have labels.
no, I don't have labels, and I mean, you know, we could talk
Do you
about.
think it's had an impact on your generation? That we
It's
should
got
be
to have
more-
done
that
because
I
you've
think
got-
there's a certain extent we need to be more mindful that their generation was taught to suppress it.
Exactly. I mean, you've got more older people now only coming about it now because they didn't want to be like laughed at, or they didn't want to be socially unacceptable. Like,
Yeah, I think. I mean, it's a really weird thing. Obviously, kids were still different when I was at school. And you had the quiet kids, you had the geeky kids, you had the computer club kids, you had the sporty kids, you had the cool kids, the not cool kids.
Wouldn't have had
You know, you
phones, but
still
yeah.
had all the subcultures that
But not
that
on
you
social
know
media.
young
was
people are
in
very
real life.
different. But
it was socially different.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was socially
Because it was
different.
more in the physical. They didn't have internet or
No.
online media to
Exactly,
hype
I
it.
mean-
It was in person.
In the
But
80s,
there
you started
certainly
getting
wasn't-
Google, but that's about it.
I mean, there certainly wasn't. I don't think my mum says that, you know, I concentrated and managed quite well until I got to secondary school when there were boys, because I went to a girls' middle school and then there were boys at the secondary school. So I was sort of very distracted. But I found some of my school reports, and if
That was so
as a
interesting.
professional, if
Yeah.
I gave those school reports to a professional looking at ADHD,
Would have been diagnosed.
they would diagnose it. I know they would, because I know what they're looking for. I know what criteria they're looking
Yes.
for.
Exactly.
Do I need that? No, I
No.
don't. However, and
Would you have needed it at the time?
would it have made any
Possibly.
difference at the time? Possibly. I
Maybe.
don't know.
Oh, it could have made a good difference, but it could have made a bad difference in the sense of, obviously, back then, some people could have been a bit more.
Yeah, but I suppose then
You get what I'm
has that lack of labelling had a knock-on effect on people of your age who are now seeking diagnoses as adults
Yeah.
because they're not getting the support?
And again, I mean,
they need.
Ali Knowles always says, you know, we don't need to be put in a box.
No.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily need labels. There is a lot of research out there to show that labels can be damaging. They can be as damaging as they can be helpful. In terms of, sometimes if you give someone a label, then they become those parts of that label, because they feel that there's an expectation to be a certain way, as opposed to embracing some of the stuff that's the more positive things. So it can have a massive impact on self-esteem. Equally, not understanding why you do some of the things you do can also have a negative effect on self-esteem, unless you understand where you're coming from. So I think even as a parent, that was really difficult. I still couldn't tell you whether I think Abigail having labels has been a good thing or a bad thing. I think this is something we'll probably debate until she's an old lady, because we don't know. All I know is that I went along with what the experts told me. As a mum, I trusted the professionals.
And even now, I think that's all we can do. Like, I know there's delays and stuff, but you just got to work with who you can. Yeah, no, it was interesting. It was interesting what you were saying about the labels. Like, personally, at this current point in my life, I'm glad I had the labels, because that is the only way I was able to access support. I say access support, I still couldn't get support in school. However, university was phenomenal for the support, and I wouldn't have had that without the labels.
And plus,
the impact it's now had on me trying to find work, so the illustration series I do, I make a point of my character actually being called Label. She's referred to as Label to raise an emphasis on is there a risk of a person losing their identity because of their labels. So I equally I'm very much a fence sitter on the subject. I think the problem is that is going to be another one that comes all down to perception. It's going to work differently for each and every person, and therefore there is not going to be a right or wrong answer about it.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts? I mean, I suppose if you wanted to sort of just come up with something.
Was there any other questions?
Yeah, I don't think there's any on Zoom, because I don't think people have joined that way, but
no, I can't see any more on there at the moment. You've had some nice comments.
I know from what I've gathered, for the young people, a lot of the concern does fall heavily around the online realm.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think gamers are just as much safe / at risk than those who are on TikTok.
Yeah. So
it's the exact same.
Give me, so I don't know, what would they call it if we were doing a posh interview on it is a posh interview, it's positive empowered kids, but I don't know, you give a soundbite. Give me like a sentence or a couple of sentences on what neurodiversity means to you and what you want adults to understand about having to live in your world.
Well,
go on, Charlie, you go.
I can't because I'm happy.
What is this to us, Charlie? Tell us.
A confusing brain, confusing mind.
Yes.
It is not that easy to learn and deal with. Like, there's a lot of things that adults will, I don't know what the word is like, not have a go at, but it'll be like confuse / discipline people or think differently of them because they're doing it, because in their head, I wouldn't do that. But it's not like that all the time. It's not always your situation. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it's you're looking at things from your perspective, and I think
it's trying to find the middle ground.
Yeah, and certainly in a behavioural situation in a school, they have behavioural policies to deal with, and their hands are tied because of that. So that can be really difficult, because what they see is a child behaving in a certain way that needs containing. That child might not want to be contained, and then it becomes a bit of a battle.
Yeah, we can't always understand from their perspective.
Yeah,
as much as they can't always understand from our perspective. They need that. You need to also get that. I know it might sound a bit wrong, but they also need to kind of get that in their head, because we always get told to put things in our head and do this, do that, but 9 times out of 10, not, or 7 times out of 10, whatever we say, it's not the same case other way. Like, if I said to someone just off the street, oh, by the way, such and such and such, I had no idea about it, or they saw me acting in the way, they would tell me to stop. But then if I explain the reasons, there's a good chance that they wouldn't think about it or put it into their head, because it's normal for them, but this is normal for us.
I think another important thing to remember, and I think half the issue we have in terms of perception, is not only people are going to have different opinions, but we seem to be in this rut where people will not, at the very least, agree to disagree. If
This is
someone's
what
not going to
I
budge on
hate
their
it.
opinion and you're not going to budge on yours, shake hands and be like, okay, we're different. Still friends? Still friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
And
always get
people
told
are so
things.
obsessed with being right, wanting to have the last words. When it comes to perception, the biggest thing to be able to do is accept you are not going to have the same opinion on everything. And
Exactly.
the best thing you can do is shake on it and just accept.
Yeah, because a lot of people will accept one things and then
It's
some people don't.
when you start getting people who won't let it go, you can't change those people, and that's where the other has to walk away.
And I think for me, sort of on a final note, is I think people are nervous to ask. You know, I remember when Abby used to have meltdowns in public, people would walk past me and look the other way. And even now, if she's struggling, I think there's a perception that maybe we're not managing it in the best way, or you know. But and I think you would quite like it if people asked. People asked you and said, "What is that like for you?" Because I don't get it. I don't get that. That's not my perception. That's not my world. But it is yours. You explain it to me.
Very rarely people ask, "What is it like?" Try your as best as you can explain it. Obviously, none of us can fully describe it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, look at me. I keep struggling to explain things now. So good luck asking me. But I know what you mean. I know.
Yeah, but you're still out here, Charlie, trying to make a difference, and that's what matters.
Still trying, and that's the best we can do at the moment.
So I think we need to be wrapping it up because we've gone 20 minutes over.
I know.
I know everybody's used to me talking for longer than I'm supposed to have, but I think
that's what we all do.
when you get 3 ADHDers, potential, well, 2 and one with some annoying habits in the same room, this is what happens.
Yes, the conversation will go over hours upon hours upon hours, so it's fine.
So thanks everybody for watching. We hope that our rather scattered discussion has given you a bit of an insight into just a few areas. A
new whole situation.
Neurodiversity. And these guys are on the youth panel tomorrow.
Yes.
So, you know, if you've got sort of lots of questions for them, then pile on.
If you have any more questions that we couldn't fit in today, as Amanda said, I will be heading up the youth panel tomorrow.
With the other lovely youngsters.
With Charlie.
Thank you very much for spending some of your Friday night with us.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care. Bye. Thank you.